10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
You heard that sound and you know what time it is. It's 9 o'clock and it's the Competition Plus Power Hour. And I'm your host, Dujane Bland. Lee is out, so we brought in reinforcements. My guy, Darren Williams Jr. What's going on, baby?
Reinforcements. I like that. But Dujane, it's 6 o'clock here on the West Coast. It's still pretty early out here, though, man.
It is. It's late here, bro. It's late here. Everything's...
What's up, though, everybody? What's up, Dujane? And, man, happy to be back here on the Power Hour. And, Dujane, we're going to have a fun show tonight. We have a really great guest here tonight.
Yeah, we have a great guest. We're going to be talking with Mike Dunn. He's going to be one of the commentators at the Pro Superstar Shootout. Super excited to have him back in the building and in drag racing. Yeah. It's going to be fun. It's been a long time since we've seen or heard from Mike Dunn, and I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, it has been a long time. It's basically been a decade since we've seen Mike Dunn on ESPN commenting an IHRA drag race. And so I'll tell you what, I'm excited to see him back out the racetrack, calling the action. And, you know, just my honest opinion, Mike Dunn, one of the greatest drag racing announcers of all time. I mean, the way he was able to analyze a run, his wittiness, he was funny, he was personable. You know, Mike Dunn was one of the greatest, and great to have him back out at the racetrack this upcoming weekend at the Pro Superstar Shootout.
Indeed. And I also like how he kind of had a little bit. He was Tony Pedregon before Tony was Tony Pedregon. Mm-hmm. Like, he didn't hold back. He didn't he told it like it was. And, you know, sometimes people didn't like that, but at the end of the day, he told the truth, nothing but the truth. And I can appreciate that. It was a blast having him be commentating in IHRA drag racing.
And not only, let's not forget, not only was he a great commentator, but he was also a great driver as well. I mean, 20 career IHRA national event wins, you know, drove for some of the greatest people in IHRA like Roland Leong, Joe Paisano, Daryl Gwynn. You know, let's not forget, he drove that Yankees car in the early 2000s. Mike Dunn was the man. Like, he could drive a race car also. So not only was he a great commentator, he was also a great driver.
Indeed. That Yankees car is right there.
Right, I can't see it. Where's it at?
Right beside the John Force car.
I got bad eye. I'm getting old, man. I can't see. I got bad eyes.
So, yeah, he was one heck of a driver. And I think his career is underrated, to be honest.
No, for sure, yeah.
You know, there were a lot of greats, but he's definitely one of those that's right in there with those others that we speak of. You know, just a heck of a driver.
Yeah, and, you know, and like I said, Mike Dunn hasn't been in the limelight for a long time. So let's just, you know, refresh people's memories. I mean, 1986 IHRA U.S. National Champion, a Nitro Funny Car. First funny car driver to go over 280 miles per hour. I mean, like I said, the Duke could drive a race car, one of the best. And I agree with you. I feel like he really had a real underrated career in drag racing.
Yeah. You know, speaking of the Pro Superstar Shootout, will you be there at the Pro Superstar Shootout?
I will.
That's going to be fun.
It is
a lot of fun. Before he gets here, my question is to you, thinking about this thing, you know, not putting you in any position to have to speak about any drivers, but 340 with a 1 was captured by that kid, Austin Prock. Do we see the duel of the 340s here at the Pro Superstar Shootout?
Hey, I'll tell you what, as a fan, I hope we do see it. I mean, that would be great to see, you know, 2 340-mile-per-hour blasts in Bradenton this upcoming weekend, but just all depends on the track, all depends on the weather. So I know Pro is going to give us a great racetrack. Bradenton Motorsports Park, they're going to give us a great racetrack, and they're going to put on a show. And last year was a great show, and I tell you what, and here's the thing too, just, you know, not only was it Austin Prock's first win, not first official win, but first win behind the wheel of a race car when he won Bradenton last year, but it was also my first win also. It was my first race with JFR on a team, and we won. So I got to hold the trophy in the winner's circle. So Bradenton is pretty special for me as well. But like I said, you know, Bradenton Motorsports Park Pro, they're going to give us a great racetrack, and these guys and gals are going to put on a show.
Yeah, man, it would be something if he pulls it off again. I thought that win for that team was the momentum. It set the tone for the regular season in the NHRA.
Yeah.
It set the tone for the regular season for a lot of people, but especially that team. You know, everybody thought a lot about you know, the Mustang over there with the quick lane Ford, and thought that they too would be right in the mix, and they were for the most part. But dude, just the season that they put together, it's a, shall we say, a Kansas City Chiefs like season that they put together. And I feel like if they can get off to a fast start again, win this thing, have a little bit of momentum, I know, you know, he's a dog, man. You know, AP's a dog, and if they can get that kind of momentum and get off to that start, I feel like that's a dangerous combination for a kid that just, he seems to be Jaden Daniels-esque. He has ice in his veins. Nothing bothers him. He doesn't get phased. He's always level when it comes down to race day. I think it's going to be tough for them, for the field, if they get off to a quick start here at Bradenton.
Yeah, we all know Austin Prock is so talented, one of the best pure drivers in Nitro Funny Car. He's aggressive, but you know, what not a lot of people know is, yes, they had a great weekend in Bradenton and they had a great season, 8 wins, you know, set the record for the most number one qualifiers in a single season, 340 miles per hour. But, you know, fast forward though to testing at Bradenton, it was a struggle. It was a real struggle. I mean, they made, I don't remember the exact amount of runs, but they made around 12 or 13 runs in testing that Tuesday and Wednesday. And man, they cannot get down the track. Jimmy Prock was ready to load up and head home because they were struggling. They couldn't get past 60 feet. It was bad, but that just goes to the testament of that team. They didn't give up. You know, they kept fighting. They kept grinding. Jimmy Prock figured it out. Austin Prock, obviously great behind the wheel. What they do, they went out, qualified number 1, and won the race. So this team is resilient. They're aggressive. And, you know, and just being around that team last year, that Cornwall Tools team, it's really like a brotherhood, from Austin to Thomas to Jimmy to Nate Hildahl to the whole crew. It's really like a brotherhood, and they're so close. And the fact that they were able to go out and turn that weekend around like they did was amazing to see. And like you said, it springboarded them for the rest of the year. Yeah,
really did. You know, I'm really looking forward to just the season. Hopefully we have better weather for some of these events. But I'm really looking forward to Gainesville as well as the Pro Superstar Shootout. It's a great way to kick off the NHRA season with this thing. And what is the weather looking like down there for this weekend?
I haven't checked yet, actually. Let me do that right now. Actually, let me do that.
Neither. We're still waiting on Mike Dunn. I got our guys on that, making sure he's reminded of the time. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this thing. I know the fans are too. It was well done. And I do like the crew of people that they have out there calling it. I think getting Mike Dunn was huge. You know, being a part of that. Jamie Howell being a part of this thing as well. Got some real heavy hitters. I'm really interested to see how Tommy Johnson Jr. does on the mic. He's done it before. We've seen him on ESPN. We've seen it. But I'm really interested to see how he does. It'd be nice to see him in a car again. But I'm really looking forward to see how that crew meshes. And if we get something a little bit different, not saying last year was bad, but you know, if we can get a little bit more extra, some of the things that were missing from last year. Yeah. And here's another cool storyline as well. Not to, you know, deviate from what you're talking about, but just guys in the announcer's booth. How about Jack Beckman? Jack Beckman was a color commentator for this race last year, 1 year ago, and 1 year later, now he's, you know, in behind the wheel of the Peak Performance Chevrolet. So I think that's a pretty cool storyline to follow as well. It really is. We had an opportunity to talk to Jack. I think it was like 2 weeks ago, and you know, I've always, when I first my first time being in the media room at an NHRA event, I was really impressed by how he explained things to the media. Some of us, you know, even though I've been around the sport, there's a lot of things that I've learned just by listening to Jack and others. But I really like the way that he answered questions and really had detail and body to what he's saying, so you can get an understanding. You may not ever worked on one car, but he really helped you to understand what was going on with the car, etc. So I really enjoyed that.
Beckman makes your job so much easier because whenever you ask him a question, he just elaborates so much. It makes your job so much easier. You need to ask, like, he answers all your questions with his one response. So
yeah,
and it's pretty funny. Also, just a quick story. In our hospitality last year, he didn't have to do this whatsoever. We have autograph signings in our hospitality, but he would literally go in there, sign autographs, but then gather everybody together and just do a deep dive on the race car, just teaching everybody how the race car works and everything like that. So I always thought that was cool. Just Beckman is a great talker and a great fill-in shoe for John Force. Probably could talk more than John Force, honestly.
Yeah, and that was pretty. Yeah, you're right. Dave W. He did. He called IHRA and on TNN in 2000. Yeah. In 2000, IHRA was still around in 2000. Crazy. Lonnie puts up a question, and I did address it. Didn't have a whole lot of time over there to address that, and since we're waiting on Mike Dunn, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
And I'll first say that we know AR's been around the sport for a long time. Really understands the ins and outs of a national event. Yeah. Some things that could be fixed and improved, and things that could maybe we can change and do better.
Yeah.
I think his being able to have that vision because of his longevity within the sport of drag racing can help the IHRA, as I stated on my show, crawl before they can walk, and then help them walk before they can run. Yeah. And, don't want to jump the gun with this thing, because you want it to come, and you want it to be able to something that can be sustainable, because I do agree. I think the NHRA does need competition. And if they can bring back, some nitro and get things rolling, like I say about UFL, it's not about competing, but it's about being that alternative and give other racers who may not be able to race within the NHRA schedule or only can run a couple races, gives them somewhere else to go. And because they have that, they can fine tune their skills. Maybe this thing turns into where they can extend sponsorships because it's a little bit more affordable to run over there. And then you can have more of a crossover. So I think it's a good thing for them.
And it's kind of a coincidence also. Our guest tonight, Mike Dunn, he had a position in the IHRA for a while. And, for Alan Reinhart, like you said, he's been around this his whole life. And not only is he a great announcer, commentator, but he also knows the ins and outs of these race cars. He's a great, technically he knows these race cars great as well. So I think just all in all, that's a plus for the IHRA. He's going to bring a good set of eyes over to that organization. And it's only up from there. And, I feel like the theme of this episode, I keep saying commentators or announcers, right? But when you think of drag racing, on TV or at the racetrack, you think of Dave McClellan and Steve Evans as the great. They set the standard for us. But for me, though, as a guy who grew up in the late 90s, early 2000s, mid 2010s, watching actually going to the racetrack, Bob Fry and Alan Reinhart were my Dave McClellan and Steve Evans, just going to the racetrack, obviously growing up with Mike Dunn on TV and stuff like that. So when Reinhart announced that he was, parting ways with NHRA, it was kind of sucked a little bit. Part of my childhood was kind of going away. Alan Reinhart, whether you like him or not, I thought he was one of the best to do it. He had a leading man's voice, and I thought he was great for the NHRA. So sucks to see him go. But, in any professional, any profession, it's the next man up attitude. So guys like Jason Galvin, Joe Costello, Brian Lones, they're going to do a great job leading forth and carrying the torch for NHRA on that side.
For sure. And that's the big thing. We lost Mike there. Look, we'll get him back here soon. I know Elon said he was having a little trouble getting in. And that's the thing about this whole thing too. The cupboard is not empty. I thought Jason did a heck of a job. Yeah. I've listened to him call Pro Mod and others, but he really did a heck of a job this year. And what I like about it is with all of those guys that will be carrying the torch, is it's natural. Sometimes you can get announcers that you feel like the excitement in their voice is forced because they feel like they have to do it because they're the color commentator, or, you get a little bit extra because they're the guy who's, calling the X's and O's. Everything's natural with these guys. And it's pretty much seamless. I really am excited about the future because I feel like they've got all the right pieces in the right places to keep this thing rolling and take it to another level.
And like I said, Alan Reinhart always felt like had a leading man's voice, and very witty as well. And one thing that comes to mind right now was, I believe it was Vegas when Travis Shoemake won his career best in qualifying. He goes, Travis Shoemake, because I'm laughing. Travis Shoemake makes his best career pass by an hour and a half. And I was like, that was so funny and funny. It was so funny I couldn't get it out, but just stuff like that. So Reinhart will be missed, and thank you for everything he's done for the NHRA over, his 30+ year tenure. And like you said, all good things must come to an end. And I'm looking forward to see what he does with the IHRA from here on out.
Indeed. Mike, give me a head nod if you're okay. Awesome. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, after we come back from this break from Weldon Pumps, who pumps up this show here at the Competition Plus Power Hour, we will be talking with one of the greats, Mike Dunn. Mike Dunn, how's it going, man? Nice to have you on the show, and thanks for taking the time.
Well, I'm glad I finally made it. I couldn't figure this thing out. I didn't have my granddaughter here to help me.
Technology, man. Technology.
Gotta love it, right?
Yeah. How have you been doing, man?
Oh, I've been good. Been retired and just literally trying to ride off into the sunset on my bicycle. And but I got a call from Chad Head, and he kind of roped me back in for this deal with the Pro Superstar Shootout. So I thought, okay, let's give this thing a shot. Getting kind of bored anyway.
Awesome.
Well, Mike, I'll be the first to say, we're all happy to have you back and calling races and calling the action out at the racetrack. And I just want to ask you, it's like I said earlier, I don't know if you're listening, but it's been almost a decade since we've seen you call a drag race. I know you did a little stuff at Bakersfield for a while at the March meet a few years back, but do you miss commentating at all?
Yeah, I do a little bit. I'm 9 years removed from it, but I actually kind of like working behind the camera. I liked all the producing stuff side of it and everything, but commentating, I think it'll be interesting to see. I know I'll be a little bit rusty. I'm 9 years removed from it, from my last broadcast on ESPN, and then probably 5 years I haven't really been doing much of anything because I was pretty much retired, and I just been out watching my grandkids play hockey and riding my bicycle with my buddies and doing a little bit of traveling. So it's been good.
When it comes down to drag racing, I've always wondered this. When guys retire, you hardly ever see them, and sometimes you never see them at an NHRA event. Is it kind of like football players when they retire, being around the game, you kind of get that feeling of how you miss being out there, and you'd rather not, put yourself in that predicament?
I remember back in the day when I was a kid, and a lot of the drivers, when they retired, like Sush Matsubara, Jake Johnson, they were great racers, and they never came out to another drag race. And I'd ask them why, and they said, well, the pull was just too much to go back. They needed to just get away from that because it would just suck them back in, and they were going off in different directions, running their own business and doing their life. And I kind of found where I got to that point, it was just easier, less frustrating just to go out there and clear my head, get on my bike with my buddies, got some good friends, and just work on them and work on the family and have a good time. So yeah, everybody's different, obviously. I'm not a good spectator, And that being said, though, that coming to this race, I will kind of be a spectator because I haven't, being so far removed from it, it's going to be like a new experience. But I think that might bring a little bit different perspective from me, than it was back when I was doing it with ESPN for 14 years and probably about 1,000 shows. But it's, it's still going to be the same. we're going to look at the uniqueness of the pro shootout. I mean, what they're doing with the testing session. And by the way, I was one of the original pro members back when it started back in the 80s. So they've come quite a ways with what they're doing there. And that's one of the big reasons why I came back. I mean, Chad Head is a good friend of mine, and we talked and kind of got me into coming back and made a good case. And plus, we got a lot of my old ESPN guys I'm working with. My old producer, Eric Schwarten, is going to be there. I worked with him for about 6 years. Jamie Howell worked with her. Obviously, she's going to be doing play-by-play, and I'll be doing the analyst spot next to her. And we're going to just work on getting the nuts and bolts, calling balls and strikes in the beginning, get that timing down. And I think, she'll be good. I mean, she's going to do a good job because she knows drag race. She's been around a long time. And, and then take it from the perspective of this being a test session, but it's unique the fact that they put a race at the end of it with a whole lot of money. And that has a whole different dimension to a test session. And so testing for me, when I tested, to me, it was always forward looking, like when you're racing, running the circuit and everything, you kind of look back at what happened, what you did, try to kind of get your game plan to go race. Testing, you're just looking forward. How can we make this thing better? We're not worried about winning this round. We're just trying to figure out a new combination to try to catch up with, with the Proc Rocket or Andron or whoever you're chasing at the time. But then the uniqueness part comes into it when you're racing on Saturday, and you're going to try to go and win the big money. So we want to try to cover the different areas on how the approach to that's going to be. I talked with TJ today, actually, after he got back from Australia, or he'd been back for a little while, and I called him up and we just talked a little bit. We worked with TJ. He probably did, we were trying to figure it out. I think it was about 4 or 5 shows he did, and he was good right off the get-go, and he hit the ground running. And I think he's going to bring a different perspective from last year, from the standpoint that he'll be able to get a little bit more technical with the pit reports. Courtney Enders did a great job. I watched a lot of videos since I decided I was going to do this, just kind of get caught up. And I watched her with her walkthrough with John Force, which is always, I thought, well, that's always challenging. I mean, in some ways, Force is easy. You just give him the microphone and you let him go, but you still got to kind of hurt him, to make sure he stays on the right track. And, and she did a good job. And it was a great interview. And some of her top end interviews our other interviews were really good. So I think we got a good crew. Joe Baker was a guy I worked with at ESPN. He's with Flow TV, does basically all the operations. I know he will give us all the best equipment he can within the budget. Now, we're not going to have the budget of the broadcast shows, but it's still going to be enough. And I think with the way we handle it, long as everything plays together, I think we're going to put a good show. Now, you got to have a good show on the racetrack, but hopefully we'll have perfect weather like they did last year, and and then a good show on the racetrack. And if we cover it well, then we will have done our job.
And you talk about timing, and one thing, just going back to when you were on TV, I just thought, the way you analyzed the run during a replay was impeccable. I mean, it was just amazing. It just felt like you were just a natural. Did you kind of see yourself that way? It just felt like it came easy to you being on TV.
No, not at all. Painfully shy. Still got nervous, before the cameras came on, but I just kind of approached it. Same thing with drag racing. I was always nervous, but got the helmet in, got strapped in. As soon as that engine started, you just take a deep breath and you go and you do your job, and you learn how to, calm down and do it. And so I took the same approach to TV. When things got crazy, just, okay, this ain't as hard as being in the final round at Indy, it's can't be that bad. But, I try to take it for a different perspective, just try to figure out different ways to say the same thing, because drag racing is very repetitive, and it has to be good. You have to be repetitive, but there's different things that happen, or different things that can cause things to happen. So you got to kind of have an idea. I always like to have kind of an idea going in, like what would happen, with track conditions. If, say, for instance, a cylinder went out, if you knew that the track at that point on the racetrack, if you got off the right side, there was a bump on the transition that was a little bit more than if you were in the middle and somebody got toward that right side. and then just kind of hit that bump and spun the tires a little bit, but you couldn't see the smoke come off it, but the cylinder went out. Okay, well, that's a pretty good analogy of what happened. And and that's the thing, because from the analyst position, I'll give you an example. The John Force thing back in 2009 when I called John out for basically helping Robert win the round at Indy so he could get in the top 10. I got so much hate mail off of that deal, but it was kind of right down the middle. People loved it, thought it was the greatest thing, and then other people wanted to tar and feather me. The Force fans wanted to kill me. And the thing is, you just sit there and you have to analyze it of what you see, and a lot of the mail I got there was sitting there saying, you should keep your opinions to yourself. Just shut your mouth and don't give your opinions. And I'm like, what do you think an analyst does? You look at the video and you see what happens, and you give your opinion on what you saw on that thing, because we don't know exactly what caused a cylinder to go out. We don't know exactly why the tires smoked. You just come up with a common sense deduction that, well, because the racetrack right there people have been problems. The guy got off there and that transition just put the cylinder out right away, but that might not have been the reason why. So I thought that was kind of comical on that thing with with all these guys saying, what are you doing? You keep your opinions to yourself. Well, then I might as well just stay home.
Agreed. And by the way, I agree with you on that one. And I've always loved the fact that no matter what, you always told the truth. There wasn't no beating around the bush. You called what you saw, and that's exactly what everybody, at least in my opinion, if you want to be objective, that's what I saw too.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, it had to be fair. And the whole thing, and the Force deal was a perfect thing because, me and John had a good understanding. We understood how the whole sport works and, the entertainment side of the things. And we kind of had an understanding. We pretty much either one could say what we thought to each other, and we didn't take it personal because it was good TV, and it wasn't personal because me and John, we sit there and have it, and then we come back over and shake hands and, and say, hey, we weren't drinking at the time, but we'd have a root beer, or whatever, and just shake hands and be good about it. But the best thing too was, when all them people I was getting a lot of heat about that. I told people, I said, as an analyst, you come up with a deduction. I mean, the first thing he did was he took he had lane choice, and he took the lane that no fuel car took the entire day. So that was the one that got him called out. I said, the next thing he did, he had a reaction time that was so bad. If it was one of his worst, if not his worst reaction times ever. And the third thing is the car drove out of the groove off the starting line so fast that, I had to conclude that it was unless he had some fluid under the tires or he broke an axle, I never seen a car move that fast. So based on those facts, I came up with the conclusion that either John helped Robert win that round, or he was such a lousy driver, you ought to quit now and just let Ashley take over and he just got to go right off in the sunset. And everybody goes, woo. And I said, but I never thought for 1 second that John Force couldn't drive a race car back then. He's the best.
I got a question for you from Blake. He says, what is the thing you miss most from the IHRA?
There's a lot I miss. I missed the driving, but I miss the people, the crew guys. When you had a good crew and you were out winning races and getting along, there was nothing better. That was just great. The TV side, I enjoyed doing a good show. I thought, doing a good show and having people come up and say, boy, we loved your show last week. You guys really nailed it. And it was great. And that was a good feeling. And I was producing the tech pieces towards the end. They were letting me they gave me a lot of leeway to do that. I enjoyed doing those. There's so many things. I just love the sport altogether. Growing up as a kid in Southern California, up in La Mirada, and going out to drag races with my dad and start out drag racing my bicycles. I had a lot of fun drag racing my bicycle, and I won a lot of races. I tell people I was Don Garlis of bicycle drag racing. I won 28 out of races, but there's so much to enjoy with drag racing. Just a whole. I enjoyed 50 years of it. I wouldn't trade anything for it.
And at the end of the day, drag racing is drag racing, and like I said, you know the ins and outs of these race cars. But have you kept up with how these cars are run today? Obviously, like I said, you've been out of the sport for about 10 years now, I would say. But do you still keep up to date with everything that's going on?
No, not really. The technology. I mean, I check in. I see how fast and quick and fast they're going, and that's one thing I'm kind of excited about, going there and seeing what changes they have. I mean, drag racing, though, I mean, it hasn't really evolved a whole lot. I mean, the basic principle's been the same from day one. You make as much horsepower as you can, and you try to get that horsepower hooked to the racetrack to accelerate the car as quick as it will go to the finish line. And the more fuel you can burn, the more power you make. But you got to be able to hook it up to the racetrack and drive it towards the finish line. So that basic concept has always been the same, and will be the same. It's just how they do it. And they've basically, I mean, we were looking at numbers. I talked to Ken Vinny. I said, I mean, my career, I went 449 at 331 miles per hour, which isn't a quarter mile. And I said, that's not a bad pass. But you look at these guys now, I mean, they're 340 miles per hour and 1,000 feet, And I looked at the numbers, and my quickest, when I went those numbers, I ran like about a 305 to the eighth at 276, which is nothing. I mean, they've gone 300 miles per hour to the eighth now. So, I mean, you look at the numbers, and 282 was my quickest to the 1,000 foot, or 382 was my quickest to 1,000 foot. Oh, hell, they're going almost, I think, what is a 363 is the quickest. Now that's 0.2 of a second right there. So you go right there, 449. That's already, you're down to 429 and a quarter mile. If all things being equal, there's other factors involved. But the other thing is, at 296 to 300 miles per hour at the eighth versus 276, that 0.2 doesn't correlate, because you've got so much speed at the eighth mile, you're going to run a lot quicker than the 0.2 in the next 300 feet basically. So it's amazing how fast they're going. And I can tell you what, I mean, 449, 331, excuse me, and a quarter mile. I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at, but it ain't nothing like how fast these cars are going now. I was talking with, I forget who I was talking to. I think it might've been Dixon the other day. I said, to me, it's like, because I knew how much faster they went when we went from 470s to 450s. It was night and day. And now they're going as quick and as fast as they are now. I said, that's like when I drove my El Camino at Irwindale, 15-second El Camino, and then jumped into an alcohol funny car that went 750s. That difference is probably about the way it is now. I mean, it's unbelievable how quick and fast they're going.
What do you think when they would run? I mean, we had 341 miles an hour to 1,000 foot. What would be the mile an hour to a quarter mile? 10 miles more?
Well, I mean, if you unleash them, who knows what it would be. I mean, they still basically have rev limiters on the top end where they hit the timing right when they get a RPM, and they're running about 8,300 to hit 340, right around there RPM, because they're 1-to-1 by the time they get to half track, they're usually 1-to-1. So whatever the RPM is versus the tire you're running, I mean, that tells you what your speed's going to be. I don't know if the tire can hold how fast, because this tire, right. I mean, the tires were always rated to 340, but Goodyear, if they say it's 340, it's at least 350, because they always want to have a cushion. But I think I don't, be honest with you, I haven't talked to anybody at Goodyear in forever. I used to have a contact over there when I was working on the TV show, but I couldn't. I don't know if the tire would be able to be safe to be able to run a quarter mile at the speed they would probably hit.
Yeah,
and that's a determining factor. The tires are always determined. They're basically the speed limiter. They're the governor, because you can't make it go faster than the tire will withstand. Exactly. Whether from traction or whether from just overall speed and keeping the integrity of the tire all the way to the finish line.
Question: what was your favorite car you drove? This is from Andrew, and he said, "I like the Pisano car." And also, how did the Yankee sponsorship happen?
Well, my favorite car was the Yankee funny car, without a doubt. There was no question, because the car. I mean, Joe P. I mean, I grew up with him. I knew him, and he was he was hard to work. He was hard to drive for. A lot of people couldn't, but I knew him, so that was kind of an advantage. And his cars were beautiful. It was the last car it had a 2-speed transmission, had a manual lockup on the clutch. We had a reverse line lock on the brake handle to keep the thing from smoking the tires at the hit. And so we got to drive it. It was a deal where, and we're the last ones to run 2-speed. So we'd launch a car, and we'd lock the clutch up later. And so about 150, 200 feet, hit the button, it'd lock it up. The second there was a timer off of that hit the second stage of clutch, because at that time I'd put my hand down on the shift lever, and if it nosed over, I'd pull high gear, because usually it was rich, and you pull high gear and it would help keep the cylinders lit and finish the run. If it didn't lay over, I would run it to 1,000 foot, and I'd shift it into high gear at 1,000 foot. And that's when it'd run 7-8 mile an hour faster than anybody out there. And that's when, we went 280 when the next fastest speed, I think, was 272 when we set the record there. And that record held for almost 2 years, which was a pretty long time to hold a national record, even back then. So that was, without a doubt, my favorite car. And plus, that car made my career. I didn't have I just went to Roland Leong's service. He just passed away, and I spoke there. and my record with Roland driving was horrible. It just no luck. I never crashed a car before I drove for Roland, and I never crashed one after, but I crashed 3 while I was driving with him. And it was just it was like a bad luck thing. But Roland, I learned a lot from Roland, and he introduced me to my wife, who I'm still married to after 43 or 42 years. And so Roland will be in my heart. So, but Joe Paisano, that was without a doubt the best car. The way the Yankees thing happened, Hank Steinbrenner was a fan. We didn't know it. And Hank was, when we lost the Mopar deal and we had to sit out in 2000, Daryl and I worked a deal out where I would stay. I had some other offers, but I wanted to stay with Daryl. We thought maybe we would have something, so we signed a deal for basically minimum pay to get me to pay my bills in 2000, and we came to that agreement. And Hank Steinbrenner liked the fact that we stuck it out. He thought that was a good thing. And so he called Jerry Gwynn, and they were talking, and they just got together, and we put the deal together. I think they started putting it together in June, I think it was in June of 2000. We started testing. We ran the last 3 races of 2000 before we went and ran the 2001 season, which was my final season on the NHRA circuit. 2002, I started doing the TV shows.
We got a lot of great questions. Monday Morning Racer asked, Mike, you had your time at IHRA leadership. What happened with the IHRA in that period?
Oh my God. I could talk about the IHRA and what happened. I mean, we'd have to do about 5 shows. I mean, it was, I will tell you, I got the deal, and we started, and I quit the first month. So we went and had our first meeting. We had our first meeting in New York City up at 35th floor, with the money guys, I guess. And it was overlooking Central Park South. So, I mean, that's some pretty nice real estate there. And we made our pitch, and I was under the impression when I went there we had X amount of dollars that we were going to do it, and then it turns out we had to sell the deal, and then the guy didn't like what we were selling, and I got mad, and I was quitting. I was done. I said, this is BS. And one of the board members came up to me and says, hey, know you're mad about this. We're not saying we won't do it. Just go back and kind of rework the thing a little bit and make another pitch. So I went home 2 days, deciding what I wanted to do, and then I came with a plan to where that I thought could work on the pro side, because it was about we were running these house cars. I wanted to have a good show on the racetrack. I felt we had to have a good show. We had to have a TV package to cover the good show, and then just go from there. And we ended up getting an ESPN deal signed. We had a production agreement, tentative, obviously, to the thing going through. We had money. We had some money earmarked. It wasn't the money we thought we were going to get, but I thought it was enough to get a start. But just a lot of different things happened. all I can say to Reinhardt is good luck. I mean, the thing we had a good plan. We want to take it international. That was the whole thing. And I still believe to this day, if you really want substantial growth in drag racing, it needs to go international. And everybody says, well, it's too much money. You can't be like 4-1. Well, I looked into it. I mean, it's not, I'm not going to say it's cheap, but it's not as expensive as a lot of people thought. And the thing is, we had IHRA in Australia. Australia has the infrastructure down there. Europe was interested once they heard we had the ESPN deal, and they were interested because they wanted that exposure, and we could tie it in with their series. You could still have the FIA championship, but we're also going to have the IHRA championship too. So that would have happened on the second year. The first year, I think we could have done Australia. The plan was to do 4 races down there, 4 races in the U.S., 1 in Monterrey, Mexico, and 1 in Canada. So. And I think it was a good plan. It was going to be 8 car shows. We're just going to do top fuel to start out with, and just build from there. But that we made some missteps, and we lost. The board lost confidence in us, and I don't blame them. I mean, we didn't do some things that were right, and so the deal was just it was hard. It was a hard work. And I'll tell you what. And the thing with the IHR, I mean, you connect. We presented to a lot of sponsors. A lot of people wanted to listen and hear what we had to say, and a lot of people, the majority of them, liked what we said. They liked the plan. They liked what we were trying to do, but it was all kind of the same thing. And I think Reinhardt might and his owner might run into this. They in the back of their minds, well, let's the IHRA. Let's just see how this plays out first before we really jump on board. But it was a learning experience. I look back at that and said, God, I wish I wouldn't have done that. But it was, I did learn a lot. I'll tell you.
Yeah. Roy had a really cool question. You taking some wild rides, and that made the highlight reel. What was one that stood out and made you think, damn, I cheated the Reaper?
All of them. I mean, probably the biggest one was the one in Columbus when we went off the end of the track, especially after Scott Coletta's accident, because there's a lot of similarities between that accident of mine and his, except for one huge difference. I could see where I was going. The fire was down below, and I'm not sure, and the parachutes I pulled the chutes. They did open. I got the initial impact before they burned off. But, I was going down the track and I could see the net, and Columbus, back then they didn't have guardrails past the finish line. How smart were we back in those days?
Yeah.
Well, let's put them 60 feet off the starting line. But, when the car's going, 260 mile an hour, we don't need any. But anyway, so I could see to the, they blew the right tire out. So when I grabbed the brake, I wanted to pull the car left. So I looked over and I saw, there's trees off to the left. So I'm thinking, yeah, probably I'd go into the net. And I didn't think it was going to stop. And I went into the net, and I remember Ron Colson 2 years before, or when I first started driving for him, when I first started working for Roland as a crew member, Ron Colson was the driver. He had spun the car out. He wasn't going as fast in there, and they didn't have a net, and he spun the thing out and backed the thing into the guardrail. So I thought, as I'm going down there, I thought, man, this thing's not going to stop. So I'm going to, as soon as I get to the net, right before, I'm going to turn the steering wheel as hard as I can and try to, spin out, roll it to try to scrub off some speed before I hit whatever I was going to hit,
Right.
And all of a sudden it stops, and I'm like, holy hell. And I mean, I pull, belts off, and I jump out of this thing, and I run over, dust everywhere. And the safety safari comes out. They didn't see me get out of the car. They thought I got thrown. They thought I got ejected. They're looking out over there, and I was over getting that interview by Steve Evans. And that was, and that was an accident that, I didn't even get hurt. I was okay. But what saved me was Steve Gibbs was a competition director at the time, still a good friend because he saved my life. He made the decision that morning, because it was on Saturday morning, to put a second net up. And if you look at the video, the car goes in that first net and it does go in sideways or it hits the first net. And then as it gets to the second net, the car sideways because I whipped the wheel. And that probably helped too, save me. And then that stopped me. That second net probably saved my life. So, and then all the other circumstances, the fact that I could see where I was going, the fact that I remembered what Ron Colson did, and the fact that I knew I had to scrub off some speed to try to, slow down before I hit whatever I was going to hit. And the second net all contributed to me being able to walk away from that. So
incredible.
It's, it just wasn't my time, I guess.
Nah, that Columbus crash was really gnarly, and Mike, I've made a few videos about you on YouTube just as far as drag racing, and I've used that crash a couple of times in my footage. But before I ask a question, I want to bring something up. I was an aspiring drag racing journalist for a while, and do you remember a punk kid, blowing up your phone a few years ago, asking you, about the Yankees and that whole situation? You remember that?
Vaguely. Was that you?
That was me. Yes, that was me.
Were you a Yankees fan?
No, it was just I love the story of the Yankees. That was one of my favorite cars growing up, and like you mentioned, going 440s at 330 and 90%, and stuff like that. That was a great era. So just wanted to tell that story back in the day, and so that's why I was blowing up your phone a few years ago trying to get that story from you.
Yeah, well, that's a great story. That was a beautiful car too. I love the paint job on that. I mean, I drove a lot of pretty good looking cars. And then somebody mentioned the other, it was a while back that, sponsor wise, I probably had more non-automotive sponsors than just about anybody in the sport. Cause I started out with King Hawaiian Bread, and then we had Hawaiian Punch, and then had Snickers, then La Victoria Salsa, the New York Yankees, and then Mopar was in there. But that, not many guys had that many non-automotive sponsors. So that was kind of cool.
So Mike, since we're going down memory lane right now, like I mentioned, 22 national event wins in NHRA. You got some pretty cool cars, have some great owners, but one moment that sticks out to me a lot was, the U.S. Nationals you won in '86. But the reason why I want to bring that up is not only did you win it, but it was a kind of a funny final round. Obviously, going up against Billy Meyer, and he has the Budweiser car, the body on top because, he blew up in the semis. Just kind of talk about that time and what you remember from that race.
Yeah, I mean, we beat Kenny in the semis in the Budweiser car, and then Billy Myers got the same body, and it's like, it's deja vu all over again for the final round. So we got lucky the last two rounds. Let's face it. I mean, Kenny blew the spark plugs out, and we drove around him and blew it right through the body, and so we got to the final round, and the final round we did a dry burnout, and it actually kind of hazed the tires, but I don't remember grabbing the brake, because usually Joe would tell me, hold the brake just a little bit on the launch. I don't think we had the line lock on it back then, because what we would do is I would pull the brake after I staged the car, pull the brake, and he would give me number 1, 2, or 3, depending on how much it smoked the tires. And I didn't have a computer or a gauge on. We sat in the pits, and Poley was the one that showed me how to do it. And Dale Poley, probably one of the greatest funny car drivers ever. And so I sat in the pits. I went, okay, here's 200 pounds, here's 400 pounds, here's 600 pounds, just to kind of have an idea. And so what you would do is you would pull the brake, and the line lock was on the rear tire, so it would bypass the front brakes. Because always concerned about, didn't want to have the front brakes locked up, because if the front end came down or whatever, and it goes around. But what you would do, so you put the line lock button, and then you push the rear brake handle forward, hold the line lock with the rear brake, and then you'd hit the throttle, and just as soon as it started going, you just let off, and it would just hold the RPM down enough, and it would just go down a dirt road. And I don't think I did that at Indy. It smoked tires right at the hit of the throttle. I backpedaled it, and I thought, oh, we're done. And it kind of recovered, and I was going down through there, and Billy's out there, and all of a sudden he disappears, and I thought maybe he smoked the tire. So, I was running down through there, make sure we won. It turns out he broke an input shaft. So it was just our day. I mean, it was a lucky deal. It's not that we didn't run good. We were running, decent, but it was more, we weren't middle of the pack. We were probably about 500 off of the best guys for that day, so, You always got you always need those lucky breaks. I mean, a number of 22 wins. I mean, probably I would say at least, I've never really counted it, but probably 16, 17 of them. I got one lucky round,
Before we let you get out of here, Mike, one more. With this Pro Superstar Shootout, what is the thing that you like about this kind of concept the most?
Well, I like what Pro is trying to do and what Flow TV is trying to do. They're trying to try some things a little bit differently. And, and normally you can say, well, NHRA, if it's good, they're just going to copy it anyway. And for me, I don't care. I love drag racing. I mean, if it makes it better and it's our idea, that's fine. If it's NHRA's idea, don't care. Let's make drag racing better. And my whole goal with the IHRA was I never wanted to. I wasn't planning on going in competition with NHRA. They didn't view it that way. They thought it was me as a competitor, and that shouldn't be out there. But my whole focus was to try to take the thing international at a reasonable price and try to create a new fan base. And if that fan base decided to go, go to NHRA, they were the big dog. I mean, if they see a race and they get excited, in Europe or in Australia, eventually, if we were able to make it there, and they come over the States, I mean, they want to go. They're probably going to want to go to Indy. I mean, that's the big one of all. So that was my goal. It was never to put NHRA out of business or anything like that. It was just to try to create a new fan base, and I think Pro and Flow are kind of trying to do the same thing. Streaming is the way of the future. I mean, it's still kind of wild west with streaming right now. But eventually, I think it's gonna, it's all gonna go that way. It's not if, it's just a matter of when. And so I think there's some unique things and opportunities there on the television side. Pro sees some things that they've got some great ideas on what they want to do, what they think for the show and for the sponsors, and maybe that translates over to NHRA. That's and that's fine with them too. I mean, Pro just wants the sport to be better, marketed better, because they think they just think we can do better, and you can always do better. So I mean, that's just a given.
Sure. Well, Mike, we thank you. We've kept you a while. We thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. It has been an absolute honor and a privilege to be able to talk to you tonight.
Hey, it was my pleasure. It was a good time. I'm sorry it took so long to get on, but
it's all right.
It was worth the wait for me anyway.
It was worth the wait for us as well.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it. All right.
Enjoy the weekend, Mike.
All right, you too. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
Mike Dunn, everybody. That was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Nah, that was fun. And I'm not just saying this, Mike Dunn really was, I was a huge fan when I was young. Everybody knows John Force was my guy when I was a kid, but Mike Dunn was right there. I mean, you talk about it. Like I mentioned, the win at the U.S. Nationals in '86. I wasn't born yet, but just going back to the archives, remember that. But I was around when he lit up the scoreboard at Pomona in 1999 with those 450s. I mean, he lit up the scoreboard that day and everything like that. So big fan of Mike Dunn, and I'll make a point to meet him in Bradenton next week.
Yeah, I'm a fan too. I've got the actual trading card, and I've got the Yankees dragster back there. So, yeah, pretty cool stuff, man. Yeah, I didn't even realize I had that trading card. I found it the other day. It's in pristine condition too, man. NHRA's got to get back on that, by the way.
You know what's funny? So, I mentioned that I was blowing up Mike Dunn's phone to get the Yankee story because I mean I told you I read books, I did a real deep dive and I really wanted to tell that story, right?
Right.
And had a draft ready, everything was ready to record, ready to get the video done, right? And then I got called by JFR, and the story I never got to release the video of that. So just thought that was funny, but no, it's great to get to actually talk to Mike Dunn. I mean, some guy I watched on TV since I was a kid, and be able to interview him now is pretty surreal, honestly. Kind of cool.
I know. Yeah. It's wild, man. It is absolutely wild. There's a lot of wild firsts that I've had being on the reporter side of things. And that's just another one. I never would have thought in a million years that I'd be doing some of the things.
You see that comment right there?
Right now. I do too, AJ. I do too.
And I don't want to get sentimental right now, but just drag racing is a community, and there's a lot of people who help you along the way. And AJ is really one of those guys.
Yeah.
a good friend, really became good friends over the past year. And I really do wish him the best, at what he's doing now. Obviously, he has a great show called The Late Lap right now. So just want to say what's up, AJ. I miss you a lot. And also, too, I don't know if he will want me to do this, but I'm currently at Jason Rupert's shop, Nitro Funny Car driver, Jason Rupert's shop. And a guy that's hanging out with me right now, Les Mayhew, Nitro America, one of the most badass drag racing videographers out there. I mean, the dude is talented. So if anybody needs any videos done about drag racing, call this dude because he's the man. He can get the job done. So, and these AJ and Les are two guys that have helped me along the way, along with Dujanay, Lee Craft, Monday Morning Racer, all these guys, big thanks to all you guys, really.
Yeah, man. I'm thankful to you as well.
And Bobby Bennett, of course, competitionplus.com, everybody.
Yeah.
Dave W. I mean, even my boy Dave, right in the comments, like everybody, it's one big community for real.
Dave W. of DragRaceReference.com.
Yeah.
Founder, owner. Yeah, man. You guys got to check out The Late Lap, by the way. I know it's Competition Plus, but you guys got to check out The Late Lap. It is very well done. It reminds me of watching the Jay Leno show when I was a kid. Like the feel, the whole 9 yards. I feel like I'm watching Jay Leno on that black and white TV that was my first TV in my room. Watching Jay Leno show, it is awesome. I really like it a lot. It really has a different feel to it, and I know that's what he's trying to execute. And like I always say, man, it's plenty of room for all of us out here. We all can eat, and I'm really happy to see him out here doing this thing.
Hey, and real talk though, that boy AJ's a bad dude. He could put together a whole monologue and not even stumble. I wish I could do that.
Exactly.
Bad dude. I mean, put together a whole lot and don't stumble. Don't stumble once.
Not once. That's
pretty cold to do that. That's pretty cold.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm not even as long as I've been doing it. Sometimes it just don't work out that way.
And no, I don't need to shave. I'm actually growing the beard out. I'm trying something new this year. 2025, trying something new. So
it looks good, by the way.
Thank, I appreciate that. A little GQ action tonight. That's all.
It looks good.
Light hitting me good.
I wish it was dark. I wish mine was dark like yours, but it's just a little wisdom. That's all. So
the pepper good on you. The pepper, salt and pepper look good on you, man. Look good.
I appreciate it. Yeah. I appreciate it. Sometimes I look in the mirror and I'm like, I look old. I mean, I'm 43, but I look 53 sometimes.
Dave was such an a-hole. I saw that, Dave. Such an a-hole.
What are we gonna do?
Let's get back to drag racing.
Before we get up out of here, man, I wanted to kind of finish that conversation, about the IHRA, and I'll take it a step further. I know Mike talked about before he left, talked about not being in competition with them, and I agree with him on that. I do believe that the NHRA does need competition, and I think me and Lee have talked about this. I kind of liken it to AEW and WWE. Pro has been a part of this as well, has kind of pushed the NHRA to try some different things as well. Yeah. Getting them, let's say they do get their feet wet and they start to get this thing, the ball rolling in the right direction. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on having Nitro involved with them, and what do you think, if that's possible, what it will do for the sport of drag racing?
I echo all you guys' sentiments too, from what you said and what Lee said. Competition is always good because it makes you raise your game. It makes you try new stuff. And as a lifelong drag race NHRA fan, I should say, IHRA was around when I was younger, but just honestly, I just never watched it because IHRA never really came west. So they were more Midwest, East, type of vibe. So I never really paid attention much to IHRA. I was always an NHRA guy, but at the end of the day, like you said, when there was WCW and WWF, I mean, those wars were crazy, and it pushed both promotions to do better and do great and try new things. So I think that's what IHRA would really do, and seeing Nitro in another place, I think would be pretty exciting. I know it'd be kind of a slow growth, but I mean, let's see what happens. It's be fun. And like I said, with Alan Reinhart being over there and with his experience and the eyes he's had on the IHRA for so long, I think will be only a plus for the IHRA. So let's see what happens.
Yeah. Fun. I think the biggest thing is being able to be everybody being on the same page. That's so important. Whether it's a NFL organization or a stick and ball sport organization or a sanctioning body, It's all about everybody being on the same page. And I agree with Dave. There's ways to curb that. And I think to start too, if you're going to bring in nitro, I think it's helpful that some way you have a rules package that it's affordable. Because I'm not saying the NHRA is not affordable, but if you want to compete, we all know you need to have at least, you can't come in there with raggedy parts and think that you're going to compete with the top dogs. You gotta be somewhere in the middle with that. And I think if you can cut the cost, it makes it more appealing to sponsors. And maybe you can take this thing and you can bring the 1320 back.
And aside from quarter mile racing, just from your perspective, I'm just curious, how long do you think it'll take for these top tier teams in NHRA to want to go over and run IHRA?
I'm not even looking at top tier teams. I'm looking at guys like.
I mean more so down the line, not like right.
Okay, what would it take? I think first of all, I don't think you can't be the same. You can't do the same things. And I'm talking about from qualifying, how you seed, all those things have to be different. Okay. And I do believe the quarter mile has to be that thing. I don't think you can run the same cubic inch here or the same rules package with the speeds that they're running, in the NHRA. And so you have to make it to where that rules package for both nitro, top fuel, and funny car are, maybe it's just a matter of blower or something, you know what I mean? But you got to find a way to make it affordable and smart, so that it's economically feasible for guys like Jason Rupert, Terry Haddock, Doug Foley, the other guy that likes to match race. I see his face and I can't think of his name.
What's the sponsor?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't race all the time. He's more of a match race guy, and I can't think of his name. Somebody will put it up there. He did some stuff in Canada recently. Why does his name escape me? Either way, the smaller teams will be more willing to go over there, and that way to give them an opportunity. Yes, Scott Palmer, guys like that will be willing to go over there and do that. But I think you have to have it. It cannot be the standard 16 car field and we seat it the same way. You got to mix it up. Maybe it's an 8 car field, and maybe your seating is different. You know what I mean? Not 1 in 16. Do something way different. And I'm not talking about chip draws, because chip draws are cool, but you can wear those out. You know what I mean? Got to come up with more innovative ways to do that. But I do think to be different, you're going to have to find a way to go 1320 safely. Go 1320. That way, it is truly an alternative. That's what's going to attract the fan, actually, to be honest, because everybody complains about 1,000 feet, and really we shouldn't. But there are purists out there, and they still watch. They complain, but they still watch. But if you can go to 1320 and you can do it safely, that's your alternative. That's going to be the catalyst that gets people to turn their eyes and go. Because I grew up around the IHRA. Our Maryland International Raceway was an IHRA track, and they had an event every September. They had one of their big races there, in September, around Labor Day, actually. So that's how I got to learn who Clay Milliken was. A lot of different guys that were over there. It was good stuff. But I think you have to look at it. You can't go the standard way. You're going to have to, roll the dice and do something entirely different that's going to catch the eye of the IHRA purists who are looking for that to come back, and the NHRA fan, because let's face it, you know what I mean? It's the same thing with WWE. You have to be an alternative. You can't be the same. You know what I mean? And I think if people can understand that, because I still think with wrestling, people have a hard time understanding that there are two different things. We're talking about pure wrestling and sports entertainment, It's two different things. And I think you have to be different because if not, they'll give you a look for a hot minute. And if you don't wow them, they're gone.
Yeah. No, I agree. And there's so much stuff you can do here. There's, with the growth of the IHRA, or I should say the revitalization of the IHRA, there's a lot of, opportunity for new things. And just please no Chicago style. Please. Just
no.
But, and we've seen NHRA adopt stuff from IHRA in the past, like, scheduled qualifying times and night qualifying. I know IHRA, set the standard for that, and NHRA adopted that later on. But, like you mentioned, 8-car fields, or, even try some Saturday night races, kind of like how pros doing, which I think, and that's one thing as a lifelong NHRA fan. And I am that guy. NHRA can do no wrong. I'll just be honest. I am that guy. I'm just own up to it. One thing I do think that's very stale is, just the schedule and how they schedule races. We qualify Friday, we qualify Saturday, we race Sunday. Well, not switch it up. Let's qualify Friday and let's run elimination Saturday night, something like that. Just to do something different, here and there. So
maybe they're the people who do the 2-day events.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe you don't make them 3 days. Mm-hmm. And I think, with that being said, Lee talks about it as well. I think there has to be a reinvent, because I know they have sportsmen, I know they have these other things. There has to be a reinvention of what the national event is and how it's put on.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't. If you're going to have nitro cars, you got to change it up because scheduling is a problem. We know that. Sometimes you get a rain event and you've got all these people there. Well, somebody's going to get pissed on and somebody's going to be mad. And everybody's not going to be happy when you have rain and you have weather events. You have gear oil on the racetrack that sets you back. Somebody's going to be mad. Yeah. So I think if you think in the terms of a new way of a national event, reinventing that, all of those things outside of the box is what's going to draw people over and get them to come out to an event. Yeah. And I think starting small is also important. Let's, again, the crawl before you can walk, the walk before you can run. You try to do too much too fast. I think that's where it's fallen short, because at the end of the day, you're going to have to show sponsors, the product and the vision. They're going to have to see it before they really put out. So you need to have a small package. Let's see if we can do this. Give the sponsors something to look at. And when you put that product out there, you make sure that it's buttoned up from A to B. And I guarantee you, let's say you throw 3 events to get the whole thing started, get people, back into the Nitro Jam deal. Man, if it goes well in those 3 events, now all of a sudden sponsors are like, okay, I see your vision. I see what you're doing here. And, and I think also if they want to have success too, get some of these, forward-thinking track promoters involved in what you're doing. I think that's going to help as well. Don't put it all on you to try to manufacture this thing. Get some great minds in the room, get on the same page and come up with a plan, short-term and long-term. And once you put the product out there and let these guys see what's going on and it's buttoned up to the T, the money's going to come. That's what's important.
No, I echo all those sentiments. And I think the guys at IHRA know you can't stick to the status quo. And like I said, I think we're going to see something new, something fresh. And I'm looking forward to see what happens for sure.
Indeed. Pro Superstar Shootout. This is the last thing that we'll do before we get up out of here. Thank everybody for watching. We got like over 230 watching this thing. Thanks to everybody who is watching. It is a pleasure to be able to do this for you guys. Pro Superstar Shootout. What are some of the things outside of the Nitro stuff that you're looking forward to seeing here coming up? Because my favorite thing last year was homeboy toting the wheels every pass from starting line to finish line.
What was that?
That was one of the pro street cars or something like that. Dude was every pass toting wheels. Front wheels are never on the ground. Like,
Oh, really?
yeah, it was insane, but I
I
loved
was
it.
there. I didn't even know
I think I
that.
still got video of that on my phone somewhere. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Like I said, I was there. I didn't even know that. But what other classes are going to be there? Top sportsman.
I think top sportsman.
Obviously pro stock, top fuel, funny car, and
Mm-hmm.
then super comp. Is it comp or super comp? I haven't looked at the full schedule.
I had neither. Let me see if I can find it. We don't like to have dead air, but sometimes you got to have dead air.
Oh, it's the end of the show. Nobody cares.
Let's see if it can come up. Oh, there we go. All right. Let's see what we got there. Very clean website, by the way. They see they're only showing the. Okay, I'll go to the schedule. That probably will help out. So they have top sportsman, super stock. There's super stock, top sportsman. I think are the ones that will be there.
Mm-hmm. Sweet. No, just all in all though, like I'm really looking forward to heading down to Bradenton. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, Bradenton is special to me because it was my first race with a race team, and we ended up winning it obviously with Austin Prock, and getting to cheer with the guys and hold the trophy in the winner's circle was something I'll never forget. So just be able to go back there and relive those memories. And like I said, Bradenton Motorsports Park and Pro are going to give us a great racetrack. We're going to have some good weather. I checked the weather; it's going to be about mid to low 70s all week long. So can't wait to get out there, start testing Tuesday and Wednesday, and like finally, get to the real thing Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So the fans come on out. It's gonna be a great show. Like I said, we got top fuel, funny car, pro stock, plus a sportsman, and you won't be disappointed. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Can't wait.
Yeah, man, I'm super excited for it. It's the one thing that I buy on Flow every year that it's been here. So I will be doing that, and it's a great thing because there's no football, so I don't watch the Pro Bowl. Don't care. And Andrew, I did not get a chance to see that between the NFL and I think around that time it was probably close to my wedding anniversary. I didn't get a chance to see any of that. Football season was pretty dope this year, being that the team that I grew up loving and covering for the past 12 years finally made the NFC Championship game. And yeah, it's a fun time in DC again. So yeah, I didn't get a chance to see that.
Roy Avery, don't quote me on this, but from last year, and I could be wrong. If I remember correctly, I think I saw fans there in the stands just watching testing. So I think it is open to the public. I could be wrong, but from remember last year, I think I saw a lot of fans there. So bring it here, like come on out for sure.
Yeah, I'm telling you that this is a way to kick off the season, and what a smart way to kind of use testing, and then guys can make a little bit of money at it too. I'm really excited to see how this whole thing plays out again for the second year, and we'll see if that dog, the guy who I say is him, AP, can pull it off again for John Force Racing. So. It'll be fun. Man, I'm going to go berserk if we see double 340s on the board because Bob Tasco wants to have that number back, right? Don't say nothing. I'm just telling you.
I wouldn't say that. I'm just, those are two badass race cars.
They are.
And I want to see what happens down in Brady. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, I want to see it. I want to see him duking. I really do. It's going to be fun, man. It's going to be a heck of a lot of fun.
Before we get out of here, though, because I won't be on the show next week. I don't think I will be. Super Bowl pick and your picks for Bradenton. Put you on the spot right now before we get off the air.
Okay.
There's only two right answers, dude.
I want to see a three-peat. I do want to see a three-peat, so I'm going with the Chiefs. I think that just like being a Lakers fan, we saw a lot of great things. I want to see that there. Look, I'd like at Top Fuel, I'd like to see Brittany Force, and it's me because I think this race is so important for the regular season. There was a lot of hard work done. They really got hot at the end and had an opportunity. They put themselves in position to have an opportunity to win a championship. If she can come out here and win this event, I think it does. It's confidence, shows that they picked up right where they left off at the end of the season. And, you know, I think it gets them off to a quick start coming into Gainesville. Funny car, you know, sorry, AP. I'm gonna go with that Quicken Lanes Ford, Bob Tasca. I want to see him get a win here. It's a little bit of redemption for losing the championship. He lost the 340 pass to a 341, although he was, you know, the first to 340, but he got it topped with the 341. I like to see him pull it off and get the W. In pro stock, though, I'm going to go with one of the Quadra boys, and I'm going to go with Christian Quadra. I hope that one of the Quadra boys can pull this thing off. You know, we see Erica win all the time. Dallas win all the time. You know, Greg. Nah, I want to see somebody different. Give me Christian Quadra for the win.
Well, all right. I like it.
You can't make it.
Not the funny car pick, but, you know, just for
your Super Bowl pick. You can't make any other picks.
I'm a basketball fan. I don't really watch football, but I mean, if I had to pick, you know, I'm a Lakers fan. I'm pure basketball.
Absolutely.
I'm pure basketball. I watch basketball all the time. My Lakers lost tonight, so they got blown out in Philadelphia.
Darn, we did?
Yeah. But if I had to pick, I'm not a Taylor Swift fan at all, but I would like to see. I love seeing history. I love when Steve Torrance won 4 in a row back in the day. I love when John won 10 straight from 92 or from 93 to 02.
Yeah.
I love dynasties in
Me
sport.
too.
So I would like to see the Chiefs win 3 in a row also. I love dynasties in sports. So, yeah.
That would be awesome, man. Close this thing out, man. Super proud of you. It's awesome to see the growth. Happy that you're part of the John Force family over there. And thank you guys for watching the show. I hope I did it justice. Lee's a little bit better, I think, at this than I am. But we had a great time. And thank you to Mike Dunn for coming on the show. And guys, we're done. So good night, everybody.
If you want to take your vehicle's performance to new heights, you got to give it P. Like our original equipment technology, antifreeze, and coolant. Our formulas match the vehicle manufacturer's technology requirements so that we have the perfect match for every vehicle. That's one reason why Peak is among the fastest growing brands of coolant in America. We work harder to earn the trust of people like you every day.